even for myself, it doesn't just involve me, it involves other people too, so it's a bit complicated. But yeah, I can share kind of how it got started. The main thing is that in early March, Light, so it's just LGHT on Farcaster. I highly recommend following him. He kind of started the Hired channel, and he kind of got that idea from some Twitter account that he follows called Web3 Quant that kept saying like, some super bullish statement about crypto, and then at the end he would always say like higher or something like that, which is so there's kind of this idea of like maybe higher is just this phrase that you can say, and it is in crypto this mindset of like really the price is going to go higher. That was like the very base level idea. And so Light kind of started working with that idea. He created the channel and he started kind of making some, I mean, memes is kind of what you'd call it, but it's not really memes. It's like, it's more like images. Like if you guys are familiar with like visualized value and like Jack Butcher, like that style of stuff. And I saw that and I was like, okay, this is super interesting. And it was Light and Six, who I also highly recommend. They were kind of working through that channel. And in early March, I saw the channel and I'd wanted to start a meme coin, and I felt like Farcaster deserved a high quality meme coin. I like DGen, but it's set up a little differently than typical meme coins in that it's not fully diluted, not fully out there in the community, which makes sense for their purposes. And yeah, I just thought, I'd wanted to start a meme coin, and then I saw higher, and I was like, this would make a ton of sense. Like it says higher in the name, like at a very surface level, that's very fun. And then as I got more and more into it, like it was kind of like a do first and then think later moment for me, which I
Yeah.
wouldn't always recommend, especially in crypto when things are like permanent and you're putting something on chain forever. Sometimes they can kind of come back and hurt you. But in this situation, I was kind of like, let's do it. And yeah, the community kind of grew from there. And very quickly, as I got deeper into it, I was like, oh, wait, this is actually way more powerful than I thought. And now it's kind of being built as like this brand that anyone can like own and be part of and kind of remix and make their own. And that's something that I love that I got from Nouns DAO that I was very involved in before. So yeah, that's just the very basic level intro, but can go deeper on any of that.
Yeah, no, I feel, I remember using, I don't even know like the backstory, right? I just know seeing hire,
Mhm.
a bag of hire
Yeah,
and posting about hire throughout, right? And you'll see like
yeah,
Akshit, like someone from the FBI community, Akshit, he's like a huge hire fan. And you'll see him making like these images
awesome.
on hire as well, right? So like it's awesome, I think,
Yeah,
like, how it's come around. And I want to hear more about like the higher collective as well on what's happening there, because there seems to
yeah,
be a lot of chat around it's a like a really active community. You guys are constantly like shipping new stuff. So what is happening there?
yeah,
What is the higher collective?
yeah. So the higher collective, so the way that I launched the tokens, I just use this website called TokePad, and I didn't really know what I was doing, and so the liquidity situation is like not ideal. It was not ideal for hire. I think now it's better,
Hmm.
but in the beginning it was like, okay, this is something we need to tackle, and so I thought, well, how about we do like a fundraise within the community and just try to get that into liquidity, right? So we'll buy some tokens and we'll provide liquidity as a group, and like it's the kind of thing where I, as an individual, I can't do that by myself. But if everyone chips in a little bit, like that's actually a pretty, it's a
Exciting.
solvable problem. It just requires everyone to kind of like, chip in a little bit and do their part, which there's a lot of things like that. The only thing is then how do you motivate people to do that? And so we thought, okay, what if we made the collective on Party, which Party allows you to basically spin up like a mini DAO almost. Like it's not really a DAO, but it kind of is. And so spun that up. And so we bought a bunch of hire, we created some liquidity. And then we were also saying, well, with some of the money, we'd also want to give out grants to people to build in the ecosystem because I'm a huge believer, like from my time in Nouns DAO again, like I do think that if you're pretty aggressive and generous with your grant giving, with some accountability and with some common sense, if you're very generous with your grant giving, you can attract really great builders to the ecosystem, and that can be developer, artists, creators, like just any kind of person who can contribute to the project in some way. And so spun up the collective, and yeah, we bought a bunch of hire. And then, obviously the price, I don't know if you guys have followed the token price, but it's been a roller coaster. It shot up like a lot of the base ecosystem. And then now we're back to reality and it's more like, okay, let's readjust expectations a little bit. And I'm still very optimistic that we'll get where we were before and much higher.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, that's obviously fluctuated. So, but we still have, so now we have something like 7 million higher tokens in the collective, which is about, it's almost 1% of the supply. The TokePad team, which initially took a fee when we used higher, when we used their platform to launch, when I used their platform to launch, they took like a percent fee. They donated to the collective. I'm trying to figure out, I have some tokens too that I'm trying to figure out if I'm going to give to the collective or to some other things, but it's kind of this cool example and of like, yeah, the community organizing, but in a way where if you guys, I don't know if you guys were around in crypto like 2021, but at that time, like every token was kind of launching with a DAO and you kind of
Yeah.
had to participate in the DAO a little bit. Whereas now it's like the collective is its own thing. If you want to be a part of that, you can, but you also don't have to be. And I could see a world where there's multiple parties, multiple collectives for different purposes, right? It doesn't have to be that there's one collective doing all the grant giving. There could be different ones. Like there could be one that's focused on giving grants to artists and things like that. So I like that. I think that it's really cool, and I think it also gives this spirit in the community that we want to give out grants. Like I've been personally like giving out grants for different things that I'd like to see happen. Yeah, I think for you guys, maybe it'd be cool to figure out a grant that we could set up for you guys for people who participate in some way, whether that be retro funding or whatever. But I do think that giving out tokens is also a super underrated. Sorry, I'm kind of rambling, but I have a lot of thoughts on this. But I feel like giving out
Sure.
grants is also a really great way to get people embedded in your community because yeah, if I
Sure.
give you a grant, like maybe you'll sell all of it immediately to USD and like, or go buy some other meme coins with it or you use it to like pay your rent or whatever. But odds are if you're giving a grant to someone and they're in the community, if they've built
Yeah.
something, they're kind of invested in what's going to happen. And so, yeah, they might sell some of it, and everyone's finances are different. Like you probably have to sell some of it to live your life, but you'll probably keep some of it, and you'll probably be more invested in the community because you built something because you got a grant. And I think that's super underrated. And I feel like meme coins as a whole, I think are utilizing that in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I feel like very bang on, right? I think with what we did with, I don't know if you know, like we launched Proxy Swap with Proxy like last week, right?
Yeah,
And it was
yeah, I
just,
saw that a little bit. Yeah,
and now it's like, okay, now we'll build out the ecosystem. And I think
yeah.
that's that community is coming together in this shape. And you in a very like unique way we are positioned because you have like so much dev builder talent that we could legit build out mad products that the ecosystem
Hmm.
benefit
Hmm.
from, right? So I think this is very cool that A, you're here, A, you think like we could do something like retroactive funding.
Hmm.
We could also jam on like things that I think we briefly spoke about things that the ecosystem could need, right? Like from a higher
Yeah.
point. And I think we can also touch upon that now. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, let's do that. I'm just starting. I'm gonna try to find this other resource. Someone in the community kind of built this resource that's like, here's how to participate in higher. Let me try to find this super quick. Okay, I think it's gonna take a while to find it, but I do have a list of ideas, and we're trying to kind of build out more ideas. But yeah, should I go through some of the ones that I had shared in our chat here?
Yeah, I think that'll be nice. Like for everyone to get a
Okay.
sense what they could contribute towards.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the main things about hire is that I see hire as a currency that then gets used in this ecosystem, right? So kind of similar to the early days of Bitcoin, where I don't know if you guys are familiar, like Bitcoin Pizza Day, right? Where someone bought like a pizza with Bitcoin and they use, I don't know, like 20 Bitcoin or something, which now is like, millions of dollars. But at the time it was like, we're actually using this as a currency. I'm really optimistic about people using that within their own communities. And so even for you guys with proxy, right? It's like if everyone here is excited about proxy and believes in proxy and whatever token, that's as
Yeah.
good as like a dollar almost, right? Like there's some
Yeah.
variance and volatility, like that can become a currency. And so you effectively have like extra money that this community specifically can play with and can use. And so with hire, that's a big thing that I want to really push for is using a hire as a means to like exchange things. And the big one is like minting. And so Zora, like right around when we launched, Zora created minting with ERC20s.
Yeah.
And so you could actually mint open editions with an ERC20. So you could buy something with higher, which before wasn't really possible. And that was a big unlock for us. So a lot of people are now you create your meme, your image or whatever in Hire. People can buy it in Hire, so you can earn Hire for what you're doing, which is really powerful, right? Because for me, like I'm much more likely to mint something if it's in Hire than if it's in USD, right? And there's a lot of people who also probably have more Hire tokens where like
Yeah.
it's easier, it makes more sense, it gets, like I said before, it gets people in the community. So that minting one is a big one. And I think there's people that are going to start exploring this idea, but I think we need multiple kind of perspectives and opinions on it. And I think if you can be the first person to do it well, like you can become the default client. But here's like, I think the clearest one where it's like, if you built this, like we could get you a grant, like you would get a lot of usage. You could even get like profits from it, is a higher focus Zora client. So Zora is where we do all of our open editions and stuff. They have their own front end where you can mint stuff, but it's also a protocol. So you can build your own front end to interact with that protocol however you want. And so what are some alternative Zora clients? Like mint.fun, for example, a lot of things use Zora behind the scenes and they just mint through their front end. And through that, you can actually capture a fee. Zora has like a protocol fee that's specifically for the front end client to capture. And so what I would like to do is to have a client that's specifically only mints that are mintable and Hire. So it only
Mm.
shows things that are relevant to the community that you can mint and Hire. And it allows me to go through the feed and mint those things in Hire very easily. So that's like the very basic thing is like filter for those things and make it, basically Zora, like the same thing as Zora, but only things that are in Hire, because then I can just go on there every day, see what I like, mint it. It's kind of
Mm.
like basic level one. And then from there, you could kind of move up where it's okay. Now I actually want to be able to create my own mints on here. So let me upload an image. Let me set, how much I want to sell it for. You could probably set a default. I have other ideas on there that I'm happy to go deeper on, but yeah, set a default or whatever. Let me upload my image, and then I can create my mints on your app, on your website as well. That then people can mint on Zora still. And so the value there is that even if it's minted on your website, if it's through the Zora protocol, it's going to show up everywhere. It's going to show up on mint.fun. It's going to show up on Daylight. It's going to show up on Zora. It's going to be automatically plugged into Warpcast, all that stuff. So
True.
then you can do that. And then the third level, which is an idea I had this morning, is could you do an embedded wallet on that app, like FriendTech and those apps, where I can actually deposit my Hire into this embedded wallet,
This
and then I
is,
can mint things with just like one click or something without having to approve anything. So those are kind of like three levels within that idea. But even if you did the base level, I think it would be really exciting for the community.
I think Martin, like one question there, right? Is that building this, I don't think like would it be hard to build something like this, Harpal? What do you think?
Yeah, I think the Zora Mint.Fun example is something that is pretty simple to build. Embeddable is something
Mhm.
that I haven't worked with, so I can't guess,
Yeah.
but I'm pretty sure that would be also pretty much doable.
But coming back to you, Martin, then, right? Like it's not hard to build something like this, right? We could spin it up. Then it's about like who maintains it, right? How do you think
Mhm.
about where does it go from there, like once it has been built?
Yeah, so I think there's a few things. And I also have an example like Nouns, this client idea that I'm talking about, like Nouns had done it specifically for Nouns as well. It's called bound.wtf. So I'm just linking it here just for reference. And I think it did pretty well. So who maintains it, I think is a good question. So there's a few ways that this can work. One is when you have these fees, in theory, every time if this product gets used daily, you're getting fees daily, right? Like you're getting it's different with ERC20s, and you'd have to figure out exactly with ERC20s versus with Zora free mints. It's a little bit different how they do it at the protocol level, but that's something that you can work out. But this is something that makes revenue, right? Which is very rare in crypto. There's very few products that like by default of how they work actually would make you revenue. So that's one thing is like, okay, you're probably getting paid to maintain this at this point. And I don't know I don't have the exact numbers and stuff like that. But to me, if it works well, like you're getting paid to do it. And then ideally, some percentage also goes to the Hire collective so that the
Hmm.
Hire collective can keep doing stuff. Or there's a world where, the Hire collective gives you grants to keep working on it as well. And I would be happy to also keep funding it so that you can keep working on it.
Yeah.
I do think that but the nice thing about software like this is that once you've built it, like I've built some things for Nouns and stuff like that. I'm a developer too. I mean, not as experienced as some of you, but um some of that stuff is just it's still working, like it doesn't last forever, as like things get upgraded and things change. But like, you could probably not touch it for like 6 months, and a lot of times that'll still keep working. And so I think that's also what's amazing about software and especially about crypto is like in theory, if people are using this, the contracts, Zora contracts are always going to be there. And so you have a pretty good opportunity there, in my opinion, just to let it run, even if you get, if you want to go work on something else for a bit.
Okay. Uh, cool. So this is like oh yeah, base paint too. Yeah.
Yeah, base paint is a great example.
Yeah. Okay. So that's one idea. What else can we build?
Yeah. Let's see. So one other idea, Coinbase is releasing this, I forget what they call it. They've been trying a bunch of different names for it, like Magic Money or Magic Wallet or a bunch of different things, but it's essentially this thing they're releasing where I don't know if you guys have seen this, where you can like basically use your Coinbase wallet, Coinbase balance in an embedded wallet, right? So in the US where Coinbase is the biggest thing, that's a huge unlock because then, your mom or dad or grandma or whoever, if they have Coinbase, all of a sudden they don't need to like create a wallet on MetaMask or Coinbase wallet, transfer funds, all that stuff directly in an app. They can kind of just go in and use it automatically. And so one thing that would be really cool is to have a way. And I was thinking about this today, and there's a chance that Uniswap just embeds this on Uniswap directly, and they kind of like, do that. But taking that tool and building it for a higher interface where someone can buy higher very easily, like in a way where really like you could send this link, like the ideal flow is like you can send this link to your friend who has a Coinbase account and nothing else, and they can just sign up and or they can create their wallet or whatever, and they can just buy higher with like 5 clicks or something without having to explain anything crazy about connecting your wallet and making your wallet and your seed phrase, blah blah blah. Like using this new Coinbase tool, which I think is coming in the next few weeks. I don't know exactly, but I can share
Hmm.
resources on that. Um, Building an interface where it's super easy to buy it to the point where it's like, okay, you just say like, I want to spend $5 and buy $5 worth of hire. I think an interface for that would be one really cool for hire, because it's kind of this white labeled like non-generic interface for buying higher. And so you can create a
Hmm.
more custom experience because then, okay, now you've bought some higher. Okay, now let me go take you to this client that someone else built. And you can actually go mint NFTs now, right? Like you can create a much more custom experience. Whereas like buying on Uniswap, like, I don't know, after you buy a token, you're like, okay, like now I just have it. Like now what? So I think that could be really powerful, both just for having that built is very powerful just on its own, but also powerful for the client, right? So if you figured out the code for that and someone else is building the client, you could go to them and be like, hey, I built this. Like you can use this on the client too to mint NFTs directly, right? So I think if you can get working with that tool, that's going to be really powerful too. I think that's kind of the new versions of like embedded wallets and Privy and stuff like that. I think if you can get access to it, and use it, that would be really powerful because yeah, white labeled experiences for hire that are very approachable to like normies, I think is going to be big for us.
Yeah, I think Akhil is on this call, right? Who's so Akhil built like a version, not this flow, but a different flow where you would be gifting people degen. So if you have degen and you want to onboard,
Mm,
you can just send them a link and then they're onboarded, right? It creates a wallet for them, gives them a seed,
mhm,
all of that. So I think we did that flow. So this is here it's different where you're sending them a link, but except you get onboarded where you
mhm.
buy.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah. And yeah, that's a great thing. Even going further is like, yeah, maybe creating an app where I could allocate, or I could, yeah, say like, yeah, I want to send you some hire, like, and all you need to do is like accept it. And so maybe there's like some escrow smart contract or something. I'm trying to pull up if you want to go see the smart wallet, the person who's working on it at Coinbase is this guy Wilson, who's just generally a good follow on Warpcast and on Twitter. Um, I think he shared some demos recently. He shared one on Twitter recently as well, kind of showing how it works, where it's like it's basically a Coinbase wallet, and then if you don't have a wallet, then you can plug in your Coinbase balance. But if you do, obviously you can just use that. So, but yeah, I think I like the idea of like, yeah, could I do a higher gift to someone else?
Yeah, correct.
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, Akhil, do you want to like quickly walk Martin through that flow?
Yeah, sure. So basically, I can take you through, but I don't think it's live at the moment, but I can walk you through how it works.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
basically, whoever you want to onboard to the degen chain, what we have done is basically you as a person who has degen already with you can simply put X amount and then enter their email, and then it goes to their email. Let's say Soumya doesn't have any wallet degen with them, and then you want to gift him. You can simply enter his email ID, and an email goes saying, "Hey, you have received this much degen," where there will be a claim button that we have created, where the claim button creates a wallet for you at the back, where you don't have to necessarily install uh, anything. That opens a loaded wallet with degen on the product that we have built. So basically, it's just onboarding a new person with loaded degen tokens in it that you can start using from day one.
That's so cool. Yeah, and then that with that wallet, then if they have some other wallet they want to transfer it to, they probably can,
Yeah,
right? It's like
correct.
pretty easy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a wallet.
cool.
So something like this for
Very
hire would
cool.
be cool.
Yeah, I think that would be really cool because there's people where, for example, our logo, like the arrow that you see everywhere, that's
Yeah,
actually just the arrow in the Inter font, which I'm sure you guys are familiar with Inter. It's just like the font that,
yeah,
everyone uses for everything. And so one day I was thinking, well, it w we've built this whole brand around this little arrow, which is, it's not copyrighted or anything, but it would be cool if the guy who designed the font, I think his name is Erasmus, he's on Twitter, he's a big designer. I was like, well, it'd be cool if we could get him some hire, but I don't even know if he has a wallet. Does he know about crypto? Does he care about crypto? So it'd be cool, for example, if I could be like, hey, like, I send it over to him, be like, hey, here's some hire if you want it. If you don't want it, it'll expire, I don't know, in like a month or something like that, and then I can try again. But I think that would be really cool because then
I
it's
think
no
that's
effort for
that's
that
totally
person.
possible as well. Yeah,
Yeah, very cool.
That would
I
be a
think
lot of fun.
this we should 100% put it on the list that we build, yeah, because it's not a heavy lift.
Yeah.
We have done the heavy lifting, right? So it's just now about like
Yeah, you've done
re
the hard work.
yeah, yeah. Okay, very cool.
Well, and this is where I think it could get even bigger is like if you guys build a version of that that's generalizable to any token, like a lot of meme coin communities would probably want the exact same thing. Like the thing is also with any needs that like Degen has or Hire has, odds are a lot of other communities will want the same thing, like TYBG or basically any token on Base or ETH will want a similar thing. They probably have, if you think about like the Bowden, or I mean that's on Solana, so it wouldn't really work, but like the Trump token, right? Like they probably would be able to, they would want like, hey, if could I send this a wallet to Donald Trump and see like, if he opens it, maybe he can claim it or something, right? Like that's like a great like growth tactics for those communities. So if you built that tool and made it for everybody else, I think that could work pretty well too.
Yeah, yeah. Very cool. Okay, what else, Martin? Do you have other ideas?
Let me see. Let me see. So I think there's two. There's one we're kind of starting to do. So one thing that we want to build is, let me pull up a link for reference. Are you guys familiar with like the Crash like
Ah,
747 like token?
yeah.
Yeah, let me try to find their. They have such a weird website. Their website is called airport.gay, but this is their loyalty like program. And what we're gonna do as higher is, which their thing says for those who fly higher. So we have like a lot of overlap in the member communities, but they have, if you scroll down to, actually, where does it say? Basically, yeah, if you can click around this, but essentially they're doing a loyalty program just like airline companies or credit card companies, right? Where if you spend money, you get like points back, or even like, McDonald's does this, where if you go and you get a meal, then you get like points, and then you can use those points to get like free fries or whatever another time. And that's something that we are going to start doing for hire. And what we're trying to figure out, there's kind of a few things that I'm 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 kind of taking the lead on this project. And so if you're very interested in it, like let's definitely chat because I'm a dev, but I could use help with it. So like this is like a serious project for us. What we want to do is like we want to reward good behavior in the community, right? So what is good behavior in the higher community? There's a lot of different things that it could be. One of them is like providing liquidity to the Uniswap pool. One of them is we're trying to encourage people to like stake or lock their tokens. We don't have extra tokens to give out, so we can't, reward people with tokens. but we can reward them with points that then they can use to spend on other stuff, right? So like staking or locking, participation on Warpcast, right? Are you posting good content? Are you liking, engaging with other people's stuff, like healthy participation? What are some other things like minting stuff, right? Are you creating things on Zora? Especially if we have this client, maybe it's like through this client specifically, like, are you minting stuff? Are you buying other people's stuff? Kind of all these metrics. And we want to create a way to get points from that. And so right now, the thing that I'm working on is, well, how do we weigh different things, right? Like, do we give more points to people who are providing liquidity? Is that very important? Is minting very important? Is Warpcast very important? So I'm working with someone right now. I had like a Dune bounty. I think you saw it. And someone started working on that. And so we're going to start to have that data. But one thing that's going to be helpful for us, and this is like a bit longer project, so we'd maybe have to talk more about it, but um, is figuring out like what are those points and how do we scale it, right? And so it's going to take some time to figure that out. And then once we have that, we need like an interface for people. And so the interface, I think, kind of goes along with all the other stuff we're talking about. This could in theory be like one big super higher app. But the idea is to have a place just like the McDonald's app or whatever, Starbucks or whatever loyalty app you have or Amex app. You can log in, you can see, okay, how many points do I have? What can I redeem those things for, right? So maybe I have, 1,000 points, and if I want, I can get 200 points. If I use 200 points, then we'll give you, this higher like hat for free or something like that, right? Like there's things that we're going to be using our dollars or tokens or whatever to go buy that hat, and we'll give it to you for free in exchange for those points that you're going to be spending. So building that interface is really powerful, but really showcasing all the data, like building a dashboard for us where we can see all the data of people, and maybe try different things with the points and see what that would look like. So I'm having a hard time explaining this but basically if you have like a Dune dashboard with all the data, that's like the starting point. But then could we create an interface where we can see how scaling those things like would impact like a points program, if that makes sense. So that's part of it. But another one is also just taking that data that's in Dune, that's going to be in the Dune, and just making it like on a nicer website, maybe that anyone can access. Like I'd sent like ultrasound.money is a good example of like, that's just really some data. Like that's just graphs and tables and stuff like that. But
Very
when
well.
you put on this nice website, it's very nice for the community to rally around. And so same things like, stuff around the price or number of holders. Like we have some dashboards already. I can send one here. And even just taking that data and putting it in something that looks nicer would be a really good place, because I like going on Dune, but I think people don't like it in general. It's not like, if you're not like a dev, it's not the most fun thing to look at, but I love this kind of stuff. So I think taking that data, making it more accessible. And then for the points program, it's a bit more complicated. I have like kind of whole thing that I'm still working on the points program, but if the points program is interesting to you and you want to kind of like jam on that and work on a little small thing within that, I'd love to just like hop on a call and keep chatting through it. And I probably need to write down some more thoughts about it, but yeah.
No, so I think like KP, what's your take here? Like largely because KP is obsessed with Dune and just data. Like,
Oh yeah, no, I like that idea, but it is a bit complicated what you are saying that what you are
Yeah,
saying dashboard where anyone can put their FID or anything and get all the points where
hmm,
they can see the present points and what in the future they can get if they do certain things, right?
exactly. Yeah, that's part of it. I think that's actually a better idea than what I was saying. I was saying more like for ourselves. Like I would, if I'm in charge,
yeah.
for example, like Degen, they're deciding, they're adjusting the tipping. There's like variables behind the
True.
scenes that are deciding like the tipping. For us, if we're doing a points program, I want to decide, okay, if you're locking 1,000 tokens, is that 1,000 points? If you're minting one thing, is that 100 points, 1,000 points? And I want to see how that would look based on like how we do the points. But regardless, I think an interface for both end users, like you said, which I think is very good, because if you're an end user, you want to know, well, okay,
What
should I
else?
be locking my tokens or should I be doing this or should I be minting? And odds are you probably should be doing a little bit of everything. But I think some interface where that point stuff is more accessible. And so maybe, yeah, I'm trying to think like,
Hmm.
with the Dune dashboard that we have, there's kind of the objective data of like what's actually happening. And then it's kind of like putting a wrapper on that. And maybe it's like you build your own API that then the front end kind of plugs into and is like, okay, now that we know here's what's actually happening, here's different situations. But yeah, I realize this one's a bit more complicated and I think not as easy for someone to just jump into because it's a bigger project. But if the idea of building that program is interesting and working with that data, it's a big data project at the end of the day because like we have the Dune dashboard being built out, but that's just getting the original like truth of what's happening on chain. Then you decide, okay, how do we give out points? How do we want to do like different levels? What are the levels? Like that's kind of a fun challenge to try to figure out that I'm excited about.
Yeah, I mean, this is something I'll jam with Vaishak. Vaishak is not here on the call, I think. Like he's a resident like data guy, like very much like KP. And
Cool.
we like maybe sit and jam on this and see what we can do here. Uh,
Yeah.
I like the idea of like having predictions, right? On top of like what this
Mm-hmm.
could do. And but on the supply side, right? You need to have enough incentives for people of like the hat that they could redeem. Do you have like
For
that,
sure.
or is this
Yeah,
something that
so that part is still we're still working on. So what I'm going to do is I'm basically probably just going to take a lot of my tokens and a lot of other people in the community. I'm going to ask them like, hey, can you contribute to this project in general? And then the idea is a lot of people that are making a higher stuff, like there's someone making a higher rug or higher hats, those things you can actually buy those in higher, right? You
Hmm.
don't have to buy them in ETH. And that's the big unlock is that then, okay, I can fund this program in higher, right? So if I'm giving you a hat for free because you have 100 points, I'm going and I'm buying that hat in higher. And so the idea is I'm going to invest in this project by putting these tokens to the side and investing in it. And then we use things like we're probably going to use things like Warp Shop and stuff like that to actually make it work behind the scenes. But that's still part of it is like, okay, what are we actually offering? But it could also be things that are the idea is that the points also give you things that you couldn't buy, right? Like what's cool about stuff like Amex points and stuff and things like that is like sometimes you're getting something that literally would not be possible with dollars. You can't buy it. Or, like flying business class or something is so expensive with dollars. But with miles, it's a lot of times you can get a better deal, right? So that's part of it too. Is like, what if we did like a higher conference and you had to have, 10,000 points to even like get a ticket and you can't get a ticket with dollars. It's just with points. And that's kind of something that's like intangible value. So that's kind of what I'm trying to lean into it is like, and there's also a social element of like, I don't want to lean too much into the leaderboard, but there could be an element of like, hey, I want to be a top miles person, right? Like, and airlines do this where they're like, oh, you have, bronze and silver and gold and diamond medallion plus, diamond plus 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 medallion, diamond, and it just keeps going, right? So maybe we could have something like that too, where you want the next level.
you want to go higher? True. And
Exactly.
very cool. And I think like I think also speaking with the Crash team, Utkarsh is not here on the call, but he built out a tipping dashboard and like a tipping mechanism for Crash.
Cool.
Uh, yeah, I love the branding for Crash as well on how they've done it.
Hmm. It's very cool. It's very cool. I feel like they've kind of gone in a very specific direction, but I think it's like like if you think about it in business terms, I feel like they're like TAM, like their total addressable market is a little bit smaller, but I think they're going to have a very passionate community. Whereas I think Hire, for example, is still kind of small. Like it's DGen, for example, is probably always going to have a bigger TAM than Hire. Like I expect degen to be bigger than higher all the time. Like I think that both are going to grow significantly and the ratio will change. But like degen is fundamentally like just like Bitcoin is more appealing to more people. But there is value in kind of niching down and being like, and I feel like they've gone into this very specific aesthetic and vibe. And I think they've done a very good job of that.
Yeah. I feel we could also like, do you have other ideas, and then I can share like other thoughts that I have.
That was really the main one. One small one is specifically as part of that, we'll need Farcaster data, and it would be really good to get Farcaster data that also filters for spam or kind of similar. Like we need to figure out, okay, how do we filter for spam? What's considered a good contribution, stuff like that. And for that, we kind of need some data, but also a dashboard. And a dashboard can really just be an Excel spreadsheet. Like it doesn't have to be really a dashboard. But some idea of like, because for example, if you go to let me try to show you an example. If you go to this, yeah, if you go to this dashboard, let me link this right here. If you go to this dashboard, which is a very useful dashboard, if you go to the bottom, very bottom right, there's a table that's like higher most active users. And if you look right now, the top one is this thing called Panda Coin, which
Mm.
has 3 casts, but somehow 6,000 likes. And I was like, what is this? And I looked it up and they just, it seems like clearly some bot thing or something because they're muted in the channel. So they shouldn't even be getting any likes on Warpcast. I think it's either it's super popular and it's just a part of Farcaster I don't know anything about, but something about it seems fishy, right? So if we were doing a points program, odds are we wouldn't want them to be included in that. But how do you know whether something is spam? That's a really big question. Like that Warpcast as a whole is trying to figure out. But that's something that we'd want to figure out is like, and that's something that every Farcaster community is going to want is like, hey, we want like good data on like who is actually contributing in the community, but it's hard to figure that out.
Yeah, I feel I think Akhil wasn't one team building out like a channel mods, channel stack, right? For this kind of stuff. I remember having this
Yeah.
conversation week once on like Degen being like full of spam and like ways that they were tackling it. And we realized that there's like a host, like a suite of products that you could build specifically for channels and just like making sure like whether it is incentive mechanisms within the channel or whether it is stuff around like understanding your users and usage and conversations and even like a summary, right? Like, Webcast doesn't do a lot here. So you
Yeah.
could really, I think, Akhil, is someone building that?
Yeah, I think Harpreet here can
Yep.
add. He's built.
Yep, we are trying to build that. And apart from that, like their idea is basically focused on channels. So first part would be related to the channel owners, to how they can manage their channels perfectly, like all that analytics, removing that spammy thing, right? We also will consider that. And the next, the more user-centric approach would be, will also help the users to, discover more channels, like on the basis of their profile,
Yeah.
people who they follow, right? Although Farcaster does that, but Webcast does that, but it's not up to that level, right? So we're gonna take those two concepts and make something super cool.
Awesome. Yeah, that's cool. It makes me think like I don't know if you guys have seen like Bello, which my friend started, and it's kind of like analytics for, and I think they're doing some Farcaster stuff. But I feel like you could do kind of something like that too, where you give analytics of like, and the people in the channel, what tokens do they own? What are they doing? Like just more average data on like people in the channel. I think as a channel owner, that would be super beneficial. Like what percentage do you think are bots too? Because like, there's like 20,000, 23,000 people in the higher channel. My guess is probably like 10,000 of them are like, and this is true of every channel. I think my guess is about half of the members in any given channel are like bots or, bot like almost.
Yeah. Cool. I think Martin, like great ideas. One last piece that like before Akhil, so we'll do one piece around like everyone will like pitch you their ideas and what they're building, and maybe like 3 or 4 people we can do that and get feedback from you. The other piece is that I am personally like thinking of running like a creator accelerator, because not a lot of like on-chain creators from India and the East, so to say. So the idea is to understand the space like better and like help them get access to okay, what does it truly mean to be an on-chain creator, right? And how do you get started? Because there's like zero understanding of how you get there, but it's mostly like people trying, hitting
Yeah.
hard, and then making it their way. So we're still designing that, but would love your thoughts on like, do you think is like does Hire have a creator focus? And if yes, then like can we collaborate? Like that's also something to think about.
Yeah, for sure. And that's really cool that you're doing that. Yeah, because I think it's becoming more and more viable to just like like mint stuff on chain and just get people to buy it and especially like a dollar across the world, it means different things to different people. So if a dollar is much more powerful where you live than in New York City where you can't really buy anything with a dollar, then it's like a great like it's just a great to get plugged into like the on-chain economy because you can do a lot more. I think with Hire, we definitely do because we want people to create with Hire. That's the biggest thing. Like we want people to build. I don't know if I talked as much about this, but like the brand is all open. We want people to contribute to it. It's this thing where you can take Hire, you can take the arrow, you can take the brand, you can take what other people are doing, you can remix it in whatever way. I don't know if you guys saw the Optimus collection that Ripe made, but like that's a great example of like, hey, he just kind of took Hire and what it's about and what it means to him, and he turned that into a collection, right? There's people making pixel art, there's people making videos and stuff around Hire. And so what we want to do is like, yeah, support creators in general. And also support creators if they can build stuff around Hire, that's really beneficial to us. So definitely would want to like if you're doing that, like would love to figure out a way that Hire can support like from the collective or elsewhere. But that's a big focus for us is like we want artists to be able to make stuff on chain. And I feel like Hire is a good community where there's kind of a clear path to like, okay, you kind of have this existing community. And so if you make stuff in Hire, people will mint it, right?
Yeah, very cool. I think like imagine plugging that when you've solved for like supply because there's a lot of creators suddenly like building stuff on Hire, and then you've built out this client where people are using it as a
Exactly.
you complete the whole cycle of user experience. Cool. I think I'll hand over to
Exactly.
Akhil. And Akhil, you know, just like quickly bring people who are like who've built stuff to pitch to Martin and get his feedback on what they've built.
Yeah, like there are like couple of ideas that people have already started building. I think first we can start with Shobha and team. There are people who have playing around something to do with Hire as well that they want to pitch in and see. Take your thoughts. Shobh, Harpal, do you want to take a shot?
Sure. So thanks, Akhil. Hey, Martin. So what we are building is like we have channels right now on Farcast or Webcast, and like you are getting access to those particular channels. Like if a channel is 10K subscribers, you cast into something like that channel, all those 10K audience is seeing the channel. But the channel owner is not getting incentivized well. What we are trying to do is we are trying to add a layer on top of it where the channel owner can also get incentivized. So what we are doing is, like if you want to cast in my channel, you have to send me a DJNX stream, a superfluid money stream to me. And if it reaches a particular threshold, like 10 DJNX you have already streamed to me, then you can cast in my particular channel. In this way, the channel owner is also getting incentivized. Now, why DJNX stream? Why not just a normal token you send me and like you get access to the channel? Generally, like what happens is like you buy a subscription and then sometimes you regret about like buying it. If you don't like casting in that particular channel, you can just cancel that subscription and whatever money like would be streaming would not be streaming, and you'd have those region X in your account. Same thing which we are doing with Region X, we can do it with Hire. So like there would be channels which would be higher focus, so people has to stream higher to the channel owner in order to cast in that particular channel. All other casts will be hide or deleted from the channel. Would love your feedback on this.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that a lot. I think it makes sense. I think how do you think about like what for DGen, for example, or for any community, like who would want to like what do you see as kind of like the target user for like who would run the channel and who would want to post in it? Because one thing that came to mind was like if here's kind of what I was thinking. Like my example would be like, someone has like 100,000 followers or something on Warpcast. They can probably create a channel and they have a lot of influence there, right? So like all of a sudden, maybe it's kind of like a private access, like a group chat with this person, and you can ask them questions, or like if you're a company, you can do like a sponsor or something. The downside that I see to this is that then anyone can see the channel, which I feel like sometimes with like these things that you pay to get into, sometimes what people wanted, they want it to be like this private thing. So that's one potential issue that I see with it is I'm like, oh well, if I could just read the channel, why would I pay if I can read everything? But maybe posting it in is so valuable that you want to pay, or yeah, or maybe it's such a small amount that it's just a good way to ensure that you don't have bots in the channel. Like for Hire, maybe we would do it like, hey, to post here, you just have to stream, one Hire or something, like something very small. Yeah, just some initial thoughts, but I'm kind of curious, like, yeah, what you see as like the ideal use case for this.
The ideal use case can also be like to avoid spamming into a channel and like to get some good quality cast, so that only the limited set of people gets to cast in a particular channel and to get the distribution network.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually a good example because, for example, something I've been wanting to do with hire, like here's one use case that I'm just thinking of is like for me, there's a lot of stuff happening in the community, and sometimes I just want to highlight like the best stuff that's happening. And I was thinking of creating a channel called like highlights or something, and just posting in there when something really noteworthy is happening, and that I want to make sure people get attention on. But maybe I could open that up to other people, and it's just that you have to pay, 100 higher or whatever to be able to post in that channel. And then all the profits, they don't go to me, they go to like the higher collective, right? So then it's like you're not paying me to participate, you're like donating almost to be able to participate in the channel. It's just a good way to filter out for bots and stuff like that. So that could definitely be, I think that's interesting. And I think people will, it's a cool building block that I think people can then build their own stuff on top of. So I think it's super interesting. And I like what you're doing with the super fluid like stream that you can then cancel at any time. I think that's pretty cool too.
Thanks, Martin.
Yeah, of course.
Thanks, Shubh. Neil, do you want to go and pitch the Q&A idea that you guys are building?
Yeah, sure. Hey, Martin. This is Neil, and me and my team is building a social Q&A based on base, and it's like that your questions can make money for you, and like you can just answer the questions, and you pay the meme coins to get any founders or builders to answer your questions. So it would be easy like that. Anyone can create a profile and just they have to authenticate their Farcaster, and later they once the profile is created, they can set the price that you have to pay me this much amount to get my answers like a priority DMs. So any users can ask you questions, and if you answers in the within a given time frame, you will get the amount, or else it will be refunded back to the asker. So yeah, that's a pretty overall idea. And other features like would be around that if someone wants to look at the answers other than the asker, then they have to donate some amount of money, and later on that amount will have some royalty to the creators and as well as those who have answered, like a sneak peek to the answers.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think it's cool. It reminds me of like, I feel like when I was in like middle school or high school, there were things like this. Like there was something called like Ask FM or something a long time ago, where you could like ask a
Uh-huh.
question. And I mean, in middle
Hmm.
school, it was it was like, oh, who do you have a crush on? Like who do you like? Stuff like that. But I think in this case, it's
Yeah.
very different, where it's like you'd
Yes.
probably be asking some investor or something or someone some a little bit more intellectual questions, hopefully. But I think
Yeah.
it makes a lot of sense, and it reminds me of like it's more of like a text focused version of like I think it's called intros maybe. Let me look it up. Intros where you can like pay people to just like ask them, like it's more like you go on a call and you ask them questions and stuff. But in crypto, I feel like people
Yeah.
have such a short attention span that
Yeah,
it
like
makes more
paying
sense.
a
And
meme coins, and yeah, paying
yeah,
a
it's
meme
like yeah,
coins
for
and
me, if
yeah. Hmm.
yeah, I think for me it'd be like I would put it up because it's like I have nothing to lose, right? Like I would probably use it. I'd be like, yeah, if you give me or if you donate, because I don't really want the money, but like if you donate 1,000 higher to the higher collective or something,
Yeah,
like I'll answer your question, whatever you say, right? And I don't
yeah,
have that much to lose, and then depending on how it goes from there, I don't know if I then you see if you keep doing it, but I think I think that mental model too of like taking something that like a social product that existed maybe even like 10 years ago or something that people also kind of forget about, but like those things work and they'll always work, right? Like people love
yeah.
there's like core things about those social products that will always work. So if you can do that and then plug in some element of with Farcaster where they don't have to make another account, and then there's some paying element, like that's
Got it.
very good. And then for you can take like 1%
Hmm.
fee or something like that, and that's a very reasonable like little business.
Yes, true. Thanks for the
I
input,
like
Martin.
it. Yeah, no problem.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Akhil, I think like we are about to
Yeah,
be 5 minutes,
I think
right?
there's one more idea that Vedanta and folks are building something.
I'll go for it with
Does
us.
Vedanta just want to pitch?
Yeah, hi Martin. I'll just quickly share my screen also to show the demo. So we're actually building a Chrome extension where, if you hover on a user's profile, you can quickly get the portfolio stats, like how much is the net worth and how much is he holding on NFTs. We plan to add more data on which gets more value. So yeah, this is like the initial build we have come up where you just hover on a profile and you get a data sneak peek into that portfolio value.
That's great. Yeah, like that's cool. I would download it today. I think it's like yeah, it's like super. And I think you've this is just when you said Chrome extension. So I record this podcast with Woj, who builds Supercast and Six, and we had an ideas episode a few days ago, or that released yesterday, maybe that I would recommend listening to, where we talked about actually one of the ideas that we had was a Warpcast Chrome extension because then you don't have to build a whole other client. Like I like Supercast, but I don't use it all the time. I only use it for scheduling and a few other things. I like using Warpcast as my primary thing. But if you can build a Chrome extension, you can slowly start adding more things, right? Like one thing that I would want to see, for example, with a profile, like who are some mutual people that this person, like for example, if you hover over Catherine, like I would want to know who does Catherine follow, like that I also follow, right? Like a little bit more data or things like that. Like there's a lot of pro Twitter extensions like that I think provide a lot more information that Warpcast doesn't provide and that they might never implement. So you could just build a Chrome extension that does small things like that, and then maybe it's a pro tool that charges. It's a little bit harder to monetize this, but I think that to me it's a no-brainer. And once you have people installing your Chrome extension and using it for something small, you can keep adding new things to it, and you're kind of at the mercy of like if Warpcast decides to change something in their UI or they change something, like your Chrome extension is going to break and you're not going to know until the day of. But I think it's a fun product and I think people would like it a lot. So to me, this even just this version of it, I think is very fun. Yeah, I would love to see like, yeah, if I can hover over someone, like how much higher do they own in their connected addresses? Like that would be really cool for me specifically. But I like this idea.
Thanks, Martin. Very cool. Cool. Thanks, Martin. I think like before you go, right? You've not been part of FBI, but we've been talking a lot about like merch for the longest time. So what we decided to do was that like we'll just get on this call and we'll like live launch it, right? And
Yeah,
what I'll do is I'll just quickly share my screen.
let's do it. By the way, the FBI name, I don't know who came up with that, but that's genius. It's so good.
Yeah, I mean, it started off as a joke, but it's sort of like done really well, right? And we were thinking of doing a badge also on, I think like for Farcon, we were sending out badges initially, but we decided not to. Like it could, because it's in the US and
Yeah.
I'm not sure how it plays out.
Yeah. Although I think technically, actually, I don't know. I know a lot of government brands like NASA. NASA is technically CC0, like that. Yeah, CC0. That brand is like it's not trademarked, so that's why anyone can kind of use it. I think I could be wrong, but I don't think FBI merch is FBI might not be CC0, but I don't know.
But all right, cool. Here we go. So, all right, now the merge. So I'll actually show you also like how we've done it, right? So this is the frame.
Yeah.
You enter like say whatever like size. You enter your like second. This Akshat guy who's the designer who built like a bunch of higher stuff, right? Is the same guy who built this frame from a design
Okay.
like a dress, whatever. And it'll take your size, it'll take your all of that, and then within the frame you can make the payment. And like I personally really like the way we've done it, and we've like all the frames that we do at FBI, right, are like very similar and like very well designed at least. But cool, I think like
Yeah,
that.
I like the images.
But that's that for the session. Thanks for coming, Martin. What we'll do is like we'll brainstorm internally. We'll also keep you posted. We can also share a link to the base fellowship group if you want to come in and like understand and work closely with the builders here. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good in terms.
Yeah. Yeah. And thanks for this, guys. This is super cool. Thanks to everyone for coming. And yeah, if you have any questions about hire or you want to participate, or you want to know more about, oh, if I did this, could I get a grant, stuff like that, let me know. I feel like the grants amount it's a little bit flexible, but we're trying to figure it out. So I definitely I would like to give grants to people here if you're building stuff. Like all the things that I talked about today are things that like they're not just random ideas, or things that like actually I think we need in the community like sooner rather than later. So like there is real demand for it. So if you want to build it, or if you have your own ideas, like definitely let me know. I'm just at Martin on Warpcast. But yeah.
Sounds good. Thanks for coming, Martin. Cheers, guys.
Yeah,
Take
of
care.
course. Have a good one, everybody. Bye.